It's 1995 and I'm drinking Sunny D.
Oh, Sunny D and rum, yum, yum.
You know, I've actually been craving this for about 10 years, but it's seriously boggin'.
This tastes boggin'.
Hey there guys, my name's Megan if you're new here, and if not, welcome back for another episode of Killer Weekend, where each week we'll discuss a true crime case and you guys can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments box below. Also, look at my little earrings. They're little cookies and milk. How cute are they?
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
If you like all things true crime, supernatural, UFO, conspiracy theory, and all that good stuff in between, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you each week with our true crime killer weekends, and on and off every couple of Wednesdays with our weirdo Wednesdays, where we'll discuss something spooky I've heard. And remember, if you have nothing nice to say, I will leave a small disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. It does involve details of violent crime and also sexual assault. If that's a trigger point for you, then please feel free to turn away now. Hey gremlins! Welcome back for part 2, and thank you for all the lovely messages that you've left on Friday's episode. I'm just so buzzing. It's finally 2023, the year that I get married to my boy. Someone actually wants to make me his wife. Can you believe it?
I'm shocked to my very core.
But anywho, I'm sure most of you are dying for me to shut up now, so let's get into it. Tonight, everyone, we will be discussing part 2 of the murders of Morgan Harrington and Hannah Graham, killer on campus. After a long and torturous 101 days, the remains of Morgan Harrington were discovered in Charlottesville, Virginia. Anchorage Farm, owned by David Bass, was situated in a rural area of Albemarle County. With no through road and only one way in and out, this led police to believe that the killer must have known the area. It's not the kind of place you could just stumble upon, and the terrain would have been quite hard to navigate, especially at night. The farm is only 15 minutes away from the John Paul Jones Arena, so investigators figured local abduction, local dump site, this must be a local guy. Forensics collected hairs from Morgan Harrington's body, but they turned out to be dog hairs. However, they did not belong to the Harrington's Yorkshire Terrier, Kirby. Morgan's cause of death has never been released publicly, but her family have disclosed that her death was very violent and involved a lot of broken bones. This was a terrifying sexually motivated attack, and law enforcement were well aware that this kind of offender would not be able to stop on his own. At this point in the case, we have a sketch of the killer, we have his DNA, and we now know that he owns a dog thanks to the hairs found on Morgan's body. Because of this, investigators felt like an arrest would be made pretty soon. But one day turned into a week, and then a month, and within the blink of an eye, it was nearing the 5-year anniversary. Heavy metal band Metallica put up a generous reward of $50,000 for any information leading to a conviction. Lead singer and guitarist James Hetfield made a heartfelt public appeal for people to come forward, especially those who'd attended the show in Charlottesville that fateful night. In the wake of Morgan's murder, Charlottesville had definitely changed. Female students travelled in twos, and a feeling of dread still hung in the air. Yes, a few years had passed, but no one would ever forget Morgan Harrington or the fact that her killer was still walking the streets a free man. Law enforcement worked day in and day out, hoping to put this violent predator behind bars before he struck again. Unfortunately, Jesse Matthew had other ideas. The 12th of September 2014 was just a typical Friday night for University of Virginia student Hannah Graham. The sophomore, who was studying global public health, had some pre-drinks and got ready for a night out in the town. Dressed in a sparkly green crop top and a pair of black high-waisted trousers, she headed out to a local restaurant with friends. Hannah, born Hannah Elizabeth Graham on the 25th of February 1996 in Reading, England, was your quintessential English Rose. She was raised in the UK alongside her brother James until the age of 5, when her parents Susan and John decided to move all the way to Stratford Landing in Fairfax, Virginia. Hannah was just the cutest kid with those signature British freckles and the biggest smile. Whilst attending Potomac High School in Belhaven, she went on to join the softball team, even becoming the captain in her senior year. You know that term, God has his favourites? Well, that's exactly how I would describe Hannah Graham. She was a woman of many talents. She was a gifted ski racer, a passion that she shared with her dad John. Along with her love of athletics, Hannah also had an interest in music. She played alto sax for the school band and had taken piano lessons since she was a little girl. When I said Hannah was good at everything, I meant it. Her friends said she was an amazing cook, gorgeous, and had the driest sense of humour. Again, I think that's definitely her British side coming out. You know, we're brutal over here in the UK. Hannah was just the sweetest soul. She was the least judgmental person, and she gave everyone the time of day, no matter their background. Having been lucky enough to be raised in an upper middle class household, she always had a desire to give back, even rebuilding homes in Alabama for Habitat for Humanity. The Graham family enjoyed travelling, and Hannah was fascinated with Europe, particularly the French culture. In 2014, she spent the summer abroad there, eating good food, visiting museums, and improving on her French. Hannah's dad John would describe her as sparky, dynamic, and lively. In a 2018 interview, he said, "She brought so much to our lives, and we're grateful we knew her." Hannah Graham was every parent's dream child. She was polite, respectful, a straight-A student, so no one was surprised when she was offered a place at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Like most teens before they head off to college, Hannah was given this safety talk. Don't go off on your own, don't be chatting to strangers, but I'm sure we can all relate with that mentality of, yeah, nothing will happen to me. Hannah couldn't wait to go off to Charlottesville. She'd fallen in love with the city and its gorgeous mountain views. The city, known as Seaville to locals, had everything a young college girl could want, only 6 minutes away from Virginia Beach and a short walk from the bars downtown. Hannah and her friends walked everywhere, unaware that Jesse Matthew was stalking those same city streets for his next victim. On the night she disappeared, Hannah had been out to dinner with her classmates. She then headed to a couple of house parties. At 11:50 p.m, Hannah attended a party at the Camden Plaza apartment complex. She then left at around 12:15 a.m. on her own. On surveillance footage, she appeared to be a little bit tipsy. She was skipping and stumbling, just your regular teenage girl on a weekend. At 1 a.m, Hannah wanders through the Charlottesville downtown mall, past Jewel Jewelers and Sal's Pizzeria, where she's captured on CCTV. But as she walks by, you see two men acting quite suspiciously. A white male begins following her, and once he overtakes her, ducks into a nearby doorway, as if laying in wait for her to pass him. The other male, a black man with dreads, casually strolls past Hannah, but when he spots her, he does a U-turn and begins tailing her. 5 minutes later, the man with dreads approaches Hannah and the two head to the Temple Bar for a couple of beers. The bar staff remember Hannah laughing and having a good time, but they didn't get the same positive vibes from the guy. At 1:20 a.m, she texted friends saying that she'd gotten lost. An eyewitness claims to have seen the sophomore leaving with the man and walking to his car with him, a 1998 burnt orange Chrysler. The dude with dreads allegedly held the car door open for Hannah, and she started shouting, "I'm not gonna get into that car with you." She then asked him, "Is it stolen?" Tragically, Hannah Graham was never seen alive again. Bryce Cunningham, the owner of the Temple Bar, said that Hannah was pretty drunk when she left, even leaning on the man with dreads for physical support. Had he forced her into his car against her will, or had she simply wandered off on her own? The next morning, Saturday the 13th of September, Susan and John received a frantic phone call from Hannah's roommate. She hadn't arrived back at the apartment and no one had heard from her since that text at 1:20 a.m. This wasn't like the studious and responsible Hannah at all. Yes, I get it, she was 18, but she wouldn't leave her friends and family to worry about her like this. John and Susan then reported their only daughter missing, and Chief Timothy Longo, who was on his way out of town when he got the phone call, just knew that Morgan Harrington's killer had struck again. The next 24 hours were like deja vu all over again for Jill and Dan Harrington. The news of Hannah's disappearance spread like wildfire. It was what everyone in Virginia had been dreading since Morgan's remains had turned up on Enquiries farm. People travelled from all over the US to assist in the search for Hannah, hoping and praying she'd be found alive and well. Over 1,200 volunteers showed up for the University of Virginia student that weekend, vowing to bring Hannah home. Investigators focused on retracing Hannah's steps in downtown Charlottesville that night, and while scouring through hours and hours of surveillance footage, they saw something that grabbed their attention. Two grown-ass men appeared to be keeping a very close eye on the teen. One, a white male who seemed to duck into an alcove waiting for her to walk by, and the other, a large black male who changed his course the minute he spotted the brunette statuesque beauty meandering along. What are the chances that Hannah not only encounters one creep that night, but two? And who was responsible for her disappearance? The white male who'd followed Hannah and slinked into a nearby doorway was identified and brought in for questioning. Police got a really sketchy vibe from him. He had no valid reason as to why he was downtown alone, and when he was quizzed on his interest in Hannah, he simply stated that he was watching her because she seemed really drunk and he was worried. He said he was planning on approaching her until a large black male ran up to her and put his arm around her. He described this guy as an African American with a goatee and a shaved head at around 5'10", 5'11" in height. However, when detectives reviewed the CCTV footage, there was no one in the area matching that description. Did he even exist? The only other person of interest police had on camera that night was the 6'2" man with dreadlocks who seemed to be pursuing the missing student. Through some funny coincidence, one of the investigators for the Charlottesville police recognised the second man on the tape as one of his former high school classmates, 32-year-old Jesse Leroy Matthew. He'd been on the football team with Jesse and was 100% certain that this was him. Hannah's parents remained quite private throughout the investigation, and still to this day there is very little information out there about the Grahams. On September 21st, 2014, the Grahams made their first public appearance at a local press conference. Their anguish was written all over their faces. John begged the public for help while Susan stood in the background holding a worn stuffed bunny rabbit toy. John told reporters how important the rabbit had been to Hannah. It had been her security blanket from birth all the way to the day she enrolled at the University of Virginia. Charlottesville residents couldn't believe this was happening all over again. Why Morgan? Why Hannah? Why their city? The FBI, now assisting in both cases, felt there was a strong probability that they were linked, but they needed more than a hunch. The day before the Grahams spoke to the media, Jesse Matthew walked into the Charlottesville police station and asked for a lawyer. His demeanour was vile. He had no intention of helping law enforcement, and to Police Chief Timothy Longo, this made him guilty as sin. Later that day, as Jesse Matthew was driving through East Charlottesville, he spotted an unmarked police car tailing him. Investigators had hoped that he would perhaps lead them to Hannah Graham's remains, but instead, he did something totally unexpected. In a panic, Jesse sped off through the city, and in an attempt to lose the cops, he ended up breaking several speeding restrictions. Virginia State Police were now able to put a warrant out for his arrest. They charged the 32-year-old rapist with dangerous driving, but there was just one catch. They had to find him first. In a statement to the public, Chief Longo was very clear that he believed Jesse was their man and urged the public to be on the lookout for the former football star. However, people were still in utter disbelief that the Jesse Matthew they knew could have committed these heinous crimes. He was Charlottesville's Athlete of the Year in 1999 and now coached the football team of a prestigious Christian private school. It couldn't be him, but it was. In Jesse's apartment, police found a cell phone which had been in service until September 13th, when the SIM card was removed. They also discovered a pair of shorts which had Jesse's and Hannah Graham's DNA on them. When Jesse's sample was ran through the CODIS database, they got a match on 2 unsolved crimes. There, in black and white, was physical proof, finally, that Jesse Matthew was responsible for the sexual assault of RG in Fairfax, Virginia in 2005 and for the murder of Morgan Harrington in 2009. But could they tie him to Hannah Graham's disappearance? Hannah Graham's DNA was found on the inside of the passenger door to Jesse's 1998 burnt orange Chrysler. The hunt was now on for a potential serial killer. Where was Jesse Leroy Matthew, and would he be captured before he stole another life? It was a beautiful day in Gilchrist, Texas, and Karen Monk had driven to the beach with her dog, Harley. She found a good spot, relaxed on the sand, listening to her summer playlist, eyes closed, not noticing the man setting up a tent only a short ways away. Karen was startled out of her daydream when she heard the loud rumble of a car engine. When she looked up, she saw a burnt orange Chrysler just a few feet away. The driver slammed on the brakes, but now he was just staring at her. Karen knew who this man was. You couldn't turn on the news without seeing his face flash on the screen. She'd never forget those black, penetrating eyes. And in this terrifying moment, that's all she could see. His eyes on hers, the ocean lapping beside them. Was she next? Would she be Jesse Matthews' next victim? Not today, because as quickly as he'd appeared, the man drove off. At this point, Karen knew she had 2 choices. She could leave, find a safe spot to contact authorities in the hopes that he would maybe return to the beach. Or she could stay there and make sure he came back. And just like that, this woman, a complete stranger to RG, Hannah and Morgan, decided to put the safety of the next girl above her own. She stayed and waited for the orange little car to return, which it did 15 minutes later. That afternoon, as Karen arrived home safely with her loyal pup, Harley, Jesse Matthew was finally taken into police custody. 2 days later, she saw the announcement of Jesse Matthews' arrest on the news, and she knew it was her who put him behind bars. A local woman, Cheryl Bean, was flabbergasted when she heard about Karen's selfless act of bravery and urged Texas officials to award the hometown hero with some sort of proclamation, which they did. So many times in these cases, we have people turning their backs, saying, it's not my business, I didn't want to get involved, and Karen didn't do that. Cheryl said some really sweet words about Karen and what she did that day, and I think this describes it perfectly. She did the right thing, she didn't look the other way, she got involved, she faced a dangerous person. I think it's like David and Goliath, really. Karen looked him in the eye and said, "I'm going to call the authorities." Most of us would say, "Okay, I made my call, I'm gonna go home," but not her. She said, "No, I'm going to get with the right person and make sure he's arrested." Believe me, because Karen did that, others will live. Others will not face the heartache, a lifetime of questions and endless tears at every anniversary, every birthday and every missed opportunity. Whilst in custody, having been now sent back to his home state of Virginia, Jesse didn't really say much. He just constantly asked if he could speak to his mum and if he could wear normal clothes. Of course, both of these requests were declined. Hearing Jesse talk on camera, he just sounds like a big idiot. No reason, no remorse, just a hair-trigger temper and brute strength. Fearing that he would receive the death penalty for his crimes, Jesse's defence attorneys tried to negotiate him a deal. 25 years in prison if he admitted to killing Hannah and Morgan and gave up the location of Hannah's body. The Harringtons and Grahams, who'd become quite close throughout the duration of the investigation, decided together to decline the deal. This man had abducted Hannah, done God knows whatever else to her, and now he was trying to use her body as a bargaining chip. Not today. Of course, investigators never gave up in their search for Hannah Graham, and on the 18th of October 2014, which is literally only one day after Morgan's 5-year anniversary, her remains were discovered in a shallow grave. The abandoned property on which the corpse was discarded was only 5 miles away from where Morgan's body had been found. Jesse was very familiar with the area because he had grown up only a couple of miles down the road with his mum, dad and sister. His family were still in complete disbelief that he had been the sadistic killer everyone had been looking for. But the evidence against Jesse was overwhelming and they couldn't deny that anymore. CCTV placed him as the last person to have seen Hannah alive. Morgan was last seen trying to hail a cab on the Copley Road Bridge. Jesse was working in the area as a cab driver that night. Hannah's DNA was recovered from a pair of shorts owned by Jesse Matthew and on the inside of his car's passenger door. His DNA was discovered on Morgan's Pantera t-shirt, and also the cell phone that was found in his apartment had pinged to cell towers near Anchorage Farm the night Morgan was murdered. RG, the survivor in the Fairfax, Virginia attack, was able to fly back from India and bravely identify Jesse as the man who'd attacked her all those years ago. In the days after Hannah's murder, Jesse's co-workers at the University of Virginia Hospital, where he was working as a porter, noticed a purplish bruise on his jaw. He tried to pass the bruise off as toothache, but they weren't buying his story, and investigators believe that this abrasion was Hannah Graham's final attempt at fighting him off. On the 2nd of October 2015, Jesse Matthew accepted an Alford plea and pled guilty to the rape and attempted murder of RG in 2005. He received 3 life sentences for that crime. He is then charged with the rape and murders of Hannah Graham and Morgan Harrington. Still trying to weasel his way out of the death penalty, he pleads guilty to both of the killings, receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Jill Harrington, being the absolute angel that she is, offered a comforting embrace to Deborah Carr, Jesse's mum, as her son was dragged away. Regardless of where that monster ends up, nothing will ever give Susan and John and Dan and Jill their daughters back. They couldn't understand why a violent offender such as Jesse was continuously given a free pass to brutalise women. Classmates who attended Liberty University with Jesse would later go on to say that his 2002 expulsion wasn't a direct result of his assault on a 15-year-old girl, but a consequence of another rape he committed. According to several sources, all Liberty University alumni, at a party in 2002, Jessie attacked another female student. The assault was so violent that she ended up in the emergency room that night. Jessie was asked to leave Liberty University, but yet again, no formal police report was ever filed. That means that he raped 3 young women in the space of 2.5 years, and not one university official stopped and thought, maybe this man should be behind bars. The Harringtons and Grahams felt let down and pretty damn angry, so they decided to put those feelings into something positive. In the wake of Morgan's death, Jill and Dan founded a non-profit organisation named Help Save the Next Girl. Their main goal to spread safety information in order to prevent future violent crimes against young women. Thanks to generous donations, Jill is able to offer her support to the families of other victims by flying out to attend murder trials and by offering to help pay for funeral costs. Susan and John also started the Hannah Graham Award, which offers a $10,000 educational grant to a lucky University of Virginia student. These families are so incredible, just so selfless, so kind, and I'm sure both of their girls are extremely proud of the legacy they're leaving behind in their memory. One thing that must completely break the Harringtons and the Grahams' hearts is that both crimes were completely preventable had someone just done their job, and this is not a new issue. Jessie was assaulting women back in 2002, and 20 years later, university athletes are still being protected. But who's protecting us? This is such a passion project of mine, and I truly believe that the key to ending violence towards women lies within the education system. Who knows what Hannah and Morgan would have gone on to do with the rest of their time on this earth. Hannah was majoring in global public health, and had she been given the chance, I'm sure she would have been an absolute warrior in the fight against COVID-19. The Virginia State Police believe that Jessie Matthew may be responsible for more violent attacks on women in the area of Charlottesville. If you have any information on these cases, please get in touch with your local police department or Crime Stoppers. Cassandra Morton, a 23-year-old mother of 2, was murdered in October 2009 and her remains discarded on a rural patch of land near Candler's Mountain. This patch of land is owned by Liberty University. Her killer has never been found. Sophie May Rivera was last seen in Newport News, Virginia on September 7th, 2003. Sophie's family have never heard from her again. At the time of her disappearance, she was living a short 15-minute drive from Christopher Newport University, where Jessie Matthew was a student at that time. One thing our society has to learn is that we need to stop blaming our daughters and start educating our sons, because having those awkward conversations could help save the next girl. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episodes. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up for me. It really helps this wee channel of mine. If you're watching for the first time, don't worry, you'll get used to the accent and the bad hairstyles. They all do. Then please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. If you'd like to see what this little Scottish lassie does in her free time, then please feel free to follow me, not home, because you know they'll get you on CCTV for that. Also, what happened to the random white guy who was like hiding in a doorway? I would love to know what he's up to now. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Megan True Crime or on TikTok at Megan.truecrime. To all of my new university students starting, please be safe out there. Lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and don't try Sunny D, because in the UK they've taken all the sugar out and now it tastes like ass. See ya! Mwah, big kisses.